Hello, my name is William James. I'm the host of the Board Book Geek, and today I'm going to explain why crowdfunding is the future of publishing. Let me explain. Brandon Sanderson has hit a record goal to get his books out. Yes, I've given to that crowdfunder as well because I'm looking forward to them. And it's interesting watching the jealousy and just bitchiness of the typical writers on Twitter and the new set of YA writers who are bitchy and have the mentality of children because they write children's books and it shows. But, and yes, my literary snob side is coming out there. I have read lots of good YA. I'm just generalising for the sake of impact. Crowdfunding and publishing your own work gives you a control that you don't have for a major publisher. I've experienced being published through a major publisher a very long time ago, and thankfully that book no longer exists. And you will never see it or hear it anywhere, and it can stay nicely buried in its tomb for the next 2,000 years. It gives you control. It gives you editorial control, it gives you control over the cover art, it gives you control over your own intellectual property. Then the whole thing, well, the publisher's doing this edit, well, this is their final say, this is your book cover. And I've been there, and it's not a pleasant thing, especially when you hate your book cover. It gives you that control. And backers who are backing these projects are the ones that are backing projects they want to read. No one cares about your woke YA fantasy novel inspired by China about a Chinese lesbian on a revenge kick, because that tends to be the go-to story for young women in stories right now in books. Especially YA. Everyone's on a revenge kick. Is it a power fantasy for the writer? That's a question I want to know. Tell me what you think in the comments. You end up with this situation where often a writer's voice is gagged, and I have writer friends who have all said the same thing, and I won't name names, but their first books or their early books they've had very little say to no control in it. They've had nothing. And then you look at Marvel and indie comics and DC and all of this stuff. Marvel is turning out crap. DC right now is turning out crap. No one cares about a gay Superboy who walks around protesting with a sign. No one cares. We want to see our superheroes fight villains. If you're alienating your core audience, go away. No one cares about that. We just want to see superheroes doing what superheroes do. We also want escapism from the real world. And some of the best comics right now have been Indiegogo, crowdfunding, Kickstarter. Some of them have come through completely independent prints and even being sold on well-known writers' websites, and they are fantastic. And that level of quality isn't there when Marvel artists and DC artists are tracing each other's work as well, but that's a whole different video. The writer, the creative, i.e. me publishing a book, would have control over what I'm producing. I'm not going to produce a book that I'm not happy with. And I wouldn't be happy if there were changes made that I was not happy with. Do you understand that one? When you go through the crowdfunding route, it gives you the backbone. There's also a rule that I've learned a very long time ago as someone who's worked in creative industries and people who are creatives, be them designers, photographers, filmmakers, music videos, music, whatever. Avoid investing your own money into a project. It's not hard. Just avoid putting your own money into a project because what will happen is you will always make a loss. Very few indie writers that publish books actually make a profit. Go on Amazon and look at the self-published indie section. Yes, there's a lot of romance. There's people churning out a book every couple of months, couple of weeks in some cases. But it's because many of them will never make that money back. Many will have day jobs. Many are struggling to get their work out there because no publisher is going to give them what they want. And publishing right now is very static and stale. It's very much based on trends, be it adult literary fiction, YA, fantasy, science fiction, whatever. There is trends that are very prominent at this point in time, which are also maybe not 100% representative of what Simon and Fiona are doing when they're buying their books. I just made up those names on the top of my head, as you can possibly tell. But when they're going to Waterstones, W.H. Smith's, a supermarket, bookstore, wherever they buy their books from, Amazon, whatever, eBay, they're not looking at the woke points to be ticked. They're just looking for a book they want, and a book they want to enjoy. The casual the casual reader is very different from the insular world of BookTube, which is not representative of any real readers, mostly. There are a handful, but most of it isn't. And there is a disconnect between what's super big and popular on BookTube versus what's actually big and selling in real life. the same for the trends. If you look at the indie publishing, it's probably more representative of what people are actually reading. And if you look at best versus bestseller lists and actual sales numbers, it can be an interesting little void into this bubble of publishing and how it works and where it's been. My own experience, if you find my video Confessions of a Failed Writer, of my own first book that I ever published back in my early 20s, which thankfully no longer exists because I bought the rights back, and that embarrassing little gem can disappear off the face of the earth. I was on a very small publishing company. It was an offshoot of one of the big ones, a very small offshoot. The whole publishing industry kind of soured me. And this was kind of pre-Twitter days, you could easily do self-promotion. And basically my book was put out there and it didn't sell. Maybe a few hundred copies at most, I think, in the end. I don't know the exact number. My paycheck was also bad. When it comes down to it, you want to put as little in for as maximum as you can get back. Little investment versus profit. And it's the nature of the beast. It's how publishing and how it all works. And when you look how much money traditional published writers are making versus indie published, yes, there is a lot more money in indie publishing because, again, it's all yours. There's no middleman. Indie publishing and crowdfunding, and even publishers now are doing it, are crowdfunding books like The Madonna of Bolton. His publisher, good book by the way, said if you can get X amount of money, we'll publish your book, and that's becoming a common thing as well. Crowdfunding is the future because it's probably more representative of what people actually want rather than what they're being told they want.